So you close your laptop, push back your chair, and boom, the workday is technically over. But wait, while you're eating dinner, you're suddenly remembering that one email you completely forgot to send. And then you're trying to watch a show, but you're just replaying this tense conversation from a 2 p.m. meeting. By the time you finally crawl into bed, your brain is frantically planning out tomorrow's entire schedule. It's an incredibly relatable problem, isn't it? I mean, we all do this. You go through the physical motions of logging off, but it's like your body left work hours ago and your mind just didn't get the memo. You've physically disconnected from your workspace, right? But mentally, it's like you're still sitting right there, staring blankly at your screen.
We all know that constant inner monologue. That annoying little voice whispering, hey, remember that email? Oh, and don't forget tomorrow's deadline. What this really highlights is a fundamental misunderstanding we have about how we actually operate. We kind of just assume that finishing work and recovering from work are the exact same thing. But in reality, they are two completely different things.
Section 1. What is psychological detachment? Moving beyond physical distance from work.
So when we feel completely burnt out, we usually just assume, man, I'm working way too much. But a lot of times, it's actually not the sheer volume of work. It's a widespread struggle to psychologically detach. We really have to figure out how to move beyond just putting physical miles between ourselves and our jobs. So what exactly is psychological detachment? Well, it simply means having periods when you are no longer mentally occupied by work demands. You aren't solving tomorrow's problems. You aren't checking your phone to see if somebody replied. You're not replaying a disagreement from 3 hours ago. Your brain is allowed to completely shift gears into another mode entirely. And occupational psychology research tells us that making this deliberate, intentional shift is directly linked to much better well-being and true recovery.
Section 2. Why work follows you home. The burden of unfinished business. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is why our brains do this. The reason we struggle so much to shift gears comes down to the psychology of unfinished business. Your brain basically acts as this nonstop, hyperactive alert system that is absolutely terrified you might drop the ball on something. It keeps rehearsing these tasks over and over again because, well, it doesn't trust that they're securely captured anywhere. Look at the comparison here. On the left, we've got the vague anxiety of, I still need to finish the report. Your brain is going to loop that thought endlessly. But on the right, we have this calming clarity. Tomorrow at 9:30, I will complete sections 3 and 4. The task is still open, sure, but the exact next action is defined. This beautifully removes all that ambiguity your brain is so desperately trying to manage. But our internal psychology isn't the only hurdle here. We also have to deal with what we can call the digital door. Modern technology is literally designed to keep the workday psychologically open. Just think about it. Your email, your team chat, your project management apps, your calendar, they all live right there in your pocket. The exact same device you're using to scroll through cute dog videos on the couch is also your 24/7 office. Because of this, checking just one single notification at, say, 8:30 p.m. instantly reopens your entire psychological workday. The true cost here? It's not the 2 minutes you spent actually reading the message. No, it's the massive cognitive activation that follows it. Suddenly your brain is spinning up, drafting responses, and solving problems in the background. Honestly, the healthiest boundary you can possibly set is just protecting your brain from exposing itself to that unnecessary information in the first place.
Section 3. The high performer trap, when availability becomes vigilance.
So for highly conscientious workers, the folks who tie their identity and pride to their competence, detachment is exceptionally tough. Checking messages stops being a professional necessity and kind of morphs into this deeply uncomfortable compulsion. You tell yourself, oh, I'm just being prepared, but in reality, your availability has quietly turned into anxious vigilance. You end up slipping into what is essentially standby mode. This is a state where your non-work time is totally conditional because your brain expects a work demand at literally any second. You're relaxing unless something happens. You're trying to sleep unless you remember something. And let's be real, relaxing unless something happens is not full recovery. It's a mentally expensive, exhausting state of continuous anticipation.
Section 4. Mind the detachment gap, calculating your true recovery time. So the crucial point is understanding how this continuous anticipation actually destroys your time off. This brings us to a concept called the detachment gap. It's this fantastic piece of vocabulary that really validates all that evening stress we feel. It's defined precisely as the time difference between when your workday ends physically and when it ends psychologically. And this brilliantly illustrates how the gap works in practice. So let's say your physical workday ends at 6 p.m., but you keep checking messages, you're replaying problems, and you're agonizing over projects until around 8 p.m. Because of all that cognitive activation we talked about earlier, your psychological workday doesn't actually end until 10 p.m. That is a massive 4-hour detachment gap. It completely eats up your true recovery window. And when you multiply that exhaustion across 5 working days, yeah, it is incredibly obvious why weekends never quite feel long enough.
Section 5. Build a shutdown ritual. Transitioning away from work. So how do we actually fix this? Well, we have to learn how to actively transition away from work. Most of us have a very specific morning routine for starting our day, right? But we desperately need a shutdown ritual to deliberately stop feeding our work thoughts. Here is a concrete 5-step toolkit to help your brain finally stop monitoring work. Step 1. Capture open loops. Just write down everything unfinished so it doesn't have to live in your head. Step 2. Define the exact next action. This removes that anxiety-inducing ambiguity we talked about. Step 3. Choose tomorrow's top priorities right now, so you don't spend your whole evening debating what tomorrow even means. Step 4. Communicate any necessary delays to manage expectations and stop unnecessary rumination. And finally, Step 5. Create a closing cue. Perform a physical act, like literally clearing your desk or snapping your laptop shut, and pair it with a verbal cue. Say out loud, "Work is finished for today."
Let's move to and see how this builds into the physical environment around you. You want to design a system where you don't have to constantly rely on sheer willpower. So turn off off-hour notifications if your role allows it. Get that work email off your phone's home screen. Use entirely separate browser profiles for work and personal browsing. Keep work devices completely out of your bedroom. And remember, establishing a boundary doesn't always have to mean zero availability. It can simply mean predictable availability.
Because ultimately, the entire goal of this explainer comes down to this core realization. Recovery doesn't begin when the laptop closes. It begins when your brain finally receives enough evidence that it can safely stop monitoring work. Practicing this isn't about caring less about your job. It's not about losing your ambition. It is about generating enough psychological distance to ensure your ambition is actually sustainable in the long run. Which leaves us with a question you really need to sit with tonight. Is tomorrow's performance being funded by tonight's exhaustion? I want to challenge you to try this 5-step shutdown ritual for just one single week. Observe how your evenings change and see what happens when your mind finally gets to clock out at the exact same time your body does.